The mining colony of Kepler 442b had been silent for 3 weeks. Radio transmissions stopped abruptly on a Tuesday morning, right in the middle of a routine supply request. The last message was garbled, full of screaming and something that sounded like thunder, but thunder that never stopped. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the rescue ship Resilience, watching the planet grow larger through the viewports. The world looked peaceful from orbit. Swirling clouds over green continents, 2 small moons casting shadows across vast oceans. It was hard to believe that something terrible had happened down there. Sensors show the colony buildings are still intact, reported Lieutenant Torres from his station. No signs of explosion or structural damage. But I'm not picking up any life signs, Sarah frowned. The colony had housed 400 people, miners, engineers, their families. Children had lived down there. The thought made her stomach tight with worry. There's something else, Captain, Torres continued, his voice uncertain. The wildlife readings are strange. There's one massive life form moving around the colony perimeter. It's huge, maybe the size of a starship. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the team's xenobiologist, looked up from her tablet. The original survey showed nothing larger than deer-sized creatures on this planet. Something this big should have been impossible to miss. Sarah had worked with Elena before. The woman was brilliant, fearless when it came to unknown species, and had an almost supernatural ability to understand alien creatures. If anyone could figure out what had happened to the colony, it would be her. Could it be some kind of migration? Asked Commander Brooks, Sarah's second-in-command. Maybe a creature that was hibernating when the surveys were done. Elena shook her head. Not likely. A creature that size would need enormous amounts of food. The ecosystem here couldn't support it without major signs we would have detected. The ship's computer chimed softly. Captain receiving automated distress beacon from the colony. Message repeats, do not land. The thing in the forest kills everything. It came from the deep caves. God help us, it's hunting us. Do not land. Silence filled the bridge. Sarah had been in space for 15 years, had seen wars and disasters, but something about that message chilled her more than she wanted to admit. Orders, Captain? Asked Brooks. Sarah looked at the peaceful planet below. 400 people were her responsibility now, whether they were alive or dead. Prep the shuttle. Small team only. Elena, I want you with us. If there's something new down there, we need to understand it. 2 hours later, their shuttle descended through thick clouds toward the colony. As they broke through the cloud layer, Sarah gasped. The settlement sprawled across a valley between 2 ridges of forest-covered hills. The buildings looked normal. Housing blocks, the mining facility, even a small school with playground equipment visible from the air. But everything was too quiet. There, Elena pointed toward the forest edge. Movement. Sarah saw it then. Something massive shifting between the trees. The forest itself seemed to bend and sway, as if something enormous was pushing through it. Trees that had stood for decades were falling like grass before a lawnmower. Jesus, whispered Brooks. How big is that thing? Before anyone could answer, it emerged from the tree line. The creature was like nothing in Earth's fossil record or any alien species they had encountered. It stood 40 feet tall at the shoulder, covered in midnight black scales that seemed to absorb light. Its head was elongated like a dragon from old stories, but wrong somehow. Too many eyes, teeth that curved inward like a trap. 6 legs moved with surprising grace for something so large, each ending in claws that gouged deep trenches in the earth. But the worst part was how it moved. There was intelligence there, purpose. This wasn't just a big animal. It was hunting. It's heading for the main residential area, Torres reported, his voice tight with tension. Captain, there might still be people hiding in those buildings. Sarah made a decision that would change everything. Set us down near the administration building. Everyone stays with the shuttle except Elena and me. Captain, that's not... Elena's the expert on alien biology. I won't ask anyone else to take this risk. Sarah was already checking her weapon, though she doubted it would do much good against something that size. Elena was strangely calm as they landed. She watched the creature through the shuttle's cameras with the focus of a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Look at its behavior pattern, she said quietly. It's not just destroying everything. It's searching. The creature had stopped in front of a housing complex and was using its massive claws to carefully peel away the roof of one building. Through the opening, they could see it looking inside with methodical precision. Searching for what? Asked Sarah. Survivors, Elena said simply. It's hunting the people who are hiding. As if responding to her words, the creature's head snapped up. Even from their position half a mile away, Sarah felt those alien eyes looking directly at them. The thing had heard their shuttle's engines or perhaps sensed their heat signatures. It began moving toward them with frightening speed. "Everyone back in the shuttle," Sarah ordered. But Elena was already walking away from the shuttle straight toward the approaching monster. She moved with the same calm she had shown while studying it, as if she was approaching a nervous horse instead of a creature that could swallow her whole. "Elena, get back here." The creature stopped 50 yards from Elena and rose up on its hind legs, revealing a chest covered in scars from old battles. When it roared, the sound shook the ground and rattled the shuttle's hull. It was a sound of pure rage and dominance, a challenge that said, "I am the apex predator here. Everything else is prey." Elena kept walking toward it. Sarah raised her weapon, knowing it was useless but unable to stand by and watch her friend die. The creature's roar built to a crescendo that made her ears ring, and then it stopped. The silence was sudden and complete. The creature was looking down at Elena, who now stood directly beneath its massive head. She had raised one hand, not in surrender but in greeting. And for the first time since they had arrived, the monster that had terrorized an entire colony was completely still. Elena stood beneath the creature's massive head, close enough to feel the heat radiating from its body. Up close, she could see details that the shuttle's cameras had missed. The scales weren't just black, they shifted color slightly like oil on water. The eyes weren't randomly placed but arranged in a pattern that suggested they served different purposes. Some were clearly for hunting, others might be for detecting heat or electromagnetic fields. "Elena," Sarah's voice crackled through her comm unit, barely controlled panic evident in her tone. "Whatever you're doing, do it slowly." Elena didn't respond. She was studying the creature's body language, the way it held itself. The aggressive posture was gone. Instead of preparing to strike, it seemed curious. Its multiple eyes were focused on her, but not with the predatory intensity she had seen when it was hunting through the colony buildings. She took another step closer. The creature lowered its head until it was only a few feet away from her. This close, she could smell it. Not the rotting scent she expected from a predator, but something clean and sharp like ozone after lightning. Its breathing was controlled, deliberate. It was studying her just as intently as she was studying it. "Hello?" Elena said quietly. The word seemed to surprise the creature. Its head tilted slightly, and several of the smaller eyes refocused on her face. For a moment, Elena had the strangest feeling that it was trying to understand not just the sound, but the meaning behind it. From the shuttle, Sarah watched through binoculars, her finger hovering over the emergency extraction beacon. "Brooks, can you get a clean shot if this goes wrong?" "Negative, Captain. The creature's too close. Any weapon strong enough to hurt it would vaporize Dr. Vasquez, too." Elena slowly reached into her jacket pocket. The creature's head snapped back slightly, defensive instincts kicking in, but she moved with deliberate calm. She pulled out a small device, a xenological scanner designed to analyze alien pheromones and biological markers. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said, holding the scanner where the creature could see it. "I just want to understand." She activated the device. The scanner emitted a soft hum and began analyzing the chemical compounds in the air around the creature. What she saw on the display made her catch her breath. The creature wasn't just intelligent, it was broadcasting complex chemical signals. Pheromones that indicated emotional states, but far more sophisticated than anything they had seen in Earth animals or previously encountered alien species. The patterns were almost like language, conveying concepts rather than simple emotions. "You're trying to communicate," Elena whispered, as if responding to her realization. The creature did something unexpected. It opened its massive jaws, revealing rows of curved teeth, and made a sound that was completely different from its earlier roar. This was softer, almost musical, with harmonic overtones that suggested vocal cords far more complex than any Earth creature possessed. Elena's scanner went crazy, registering chemical patterns that shifted and changed with each note. It was definitely language, not just communication, but sophisticated linguistic expression. "Sarah," Elena called back to the shuttle, never taking her eyes off the creature. "It's trying to talk to us. Elena, be very careful. Even if it's intelligent, it still killed 400 people. But Elena was beginning to doubt that. She looked at the creature's eyes again, and saw something she recognized from her years of working with traumatized animals. This wasn't the look of a predator. This was the look of something that was afraid. She deactivated the scanner and slowly sat down on the ground. It was a gesture of non-aggression, making herself smaller and less threatening. The creature watched her with fascination, then did something that made Sarah's heart nearly stop. It lay down too. The massive beast carefully folded its 6 legs beneath its body and lowered itself until its head was only slightly above Elena's. Up close, Elena could see that many of the scars on its chest weren't from battles with other creatures. They were from human weapons. Burn marks from energy rifles, deep gouges that looked like they came from mining equipment. "They hurt you," Elena said softly. The creature made that musical sound again, but this time the harmonic was different, sadder. Elena's enhanced hearing picked up subsonic frequencies that resonated in her bones, frequencies that somehow conveyed concepts her brain couldn't quite grasp, but that her heart understood perfectly. Loneliness, pain, confusion. "Elena, we're picking up movement from the colony buildings," Torres reported over the comm. "Multiple heat signatures. Some of the colonists are still alive." Elena looked toward the residential area. Several figures were visible in the windows of the buildings, watching the impossible scene playing out before them. They looked terrified, but they were alive. It didn't kill them, Elena realized. They're hiding, but it didn't kill them. She turned back to the creature. "What happened here?" "What really happened?" The creature struggled to its feet and began walking toward the forest edge. After a few steps, it looked back at Elena with what could only be described as an invitation. "Elena, don't even think about it," Sarah warned, but Elena was already standing. Every instinct she had developed over years of working with alien species told her that this creature was trying to show her something important. The colonists were alive, which meant the official reports were wrong. Something else had happened here. "I need to see what it wants to show me," Elena called back. "Keep monitoring from orbit. If I don't report back in 2 hours, contact the fleet." Elena, but she was already following the creature into the forest. As they disappeared between the trees, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. The creature's footprints in the soft earth weren't the marks of a predator hunting for sport. They were the careful, precise steps of something that was being very, very careful not to damage anything unnecessarily. In the forest, Elena followed the massive creature along paths that were clearly artificial. Someone, or something, had carved these trails between the trees with incredible precision, creating corridors wide enough for the creature to pass without damaging the surrounding ecosystem. "You made these paths," Elena said, more to herself than to the creature. "You've been living here trying not to disturb things." The creature paused and looked back at her, and Elena saw something in its eyes that made everything click into place. This wasn't a monster that had suddenly appeared to terrorize the colonists. This was the planet's original inhabitant, trying to figure out how to coexist with the humans who had built a colony in its home. The question wasn't why it had attacked the colony. The question was why it had waited so long to make contact, and what had gone wrong when it finally tried. The creature led Elena deeper into the forest, along paths that became increasingly sophisticated. What she had initially taken for simple trails were actually marvels of engineering. The creature had somehow shaped the very trees to create living corridors, guiding their growth over years or perhaps decades to form natural archways and passages. "You're not just intelligent," Elena murmured as they walked. "You're an architect." They emerged into a clearing that took Elena's breath away. In the center stood what could only be described as a living building. Trees had been grown and shaped into a structure that was part dwelling, part temple, part work of art. Vines formed intricate patterns along the walls, and flowers created geometric designs that seemed to shift and change as Elena looked at them. But it was what lay around the building that made Elena's heart sink. Scattered throughout the clearing were human machines and equipment, but not randomly strewn about like the aftermath of an attack. They were arranged carefully, almost reverently. Mining equipment had been disassembled and sorted by function. Personal belongings from the colony were organized in neat piles. Clothing, photographs, children's toys. "You've been trying to understand us," Elena said, walking among the carefully arranged human artifacts. "All of this, you've been studying our things, trying to figure out who we are." The creature made its musical sound again, and this time Elena's enhanced hearing caught something new in the harmonics. Frustration, the Sound of someone trying desperately to communicate but lacking the tools to do so effectively. Elena picked up a child stuffed animal from one of the piles, a small rabbit, with worn fur and button eyes. The creature watched her intently as she held it, and she realized it was waiting for her reaction, trying to understand the significance of the object. This belonged to someone young, Elena explained, cradling the toy gently. Humans make these for their children, their offspring. It represents comfort, safety, love. The creature moved closer, its massive head lowering until it was near the stuffed rabbit. It made a soft sound, different from its previous vocalizations, gentler, questioning. Elena had the strange feeling it was asking if it could examine the toy more closely. She held it out toward the creature. With incredible delicacy, it touched the rabbit with the tip of one claw. The touch was so gentle it barely compressed the fabric. Elena realized that this massive, seemingly dangerous creature had been handling human belongings with the care of a museum curator. You were trying to return these things, weren't you? Elena asked. You took them from the colony, but not to destroy them. You were trying to understand what they meant to us. The creature straightened and began walking toward the living building. Elena followed, and as they approached the entrance, she saw that the walls were covered with something that made her stop in amazement. Carved into the living wood were images. But these weren't primitive cave paintings. They were sophisticated artistic representations that told a story, the story of what had really happened at the colony. The first image showed the planet as it had been before humans arrived. Elena could see the creature, but it wasn't alone. There were others, a whole community of these beings living in harmony with the forest. They had built cities that were grown rather than constructed, had shaped the very landscape to meet their needs while maintaining the natural balance. The second image showed the arrival of humans. The colony ships descending from orbit. Elena recognized the design. These were early settlement ships, not the modern vessels they were using now. This colony was older than the records indicated. How long have you been watching us? Elena asked. The creature gestured toward the third image with one of its claws. This one showed the early days of the colony. Humans and the creatures existing in proximity but not interacting. The humans built their metal and concrete structures while the creatures maintained their forest cities. There was a clear boundary between the two civilizations. The fourth image made Elena's stomach clench. It showed conflict, but not the kind she expected. The humans weren't being attacked by the creatures. Instead, she saw humans with weapons destroying the forest cities. The other creatures were fleeing, not fighting back. They drove your people away, Elena whispered. The fifth image showed a single creature, the one standing beside her now, remaining behind while its people disappeared into the deep places of the world. It was a guardian, Elena realized. It had stayed to watch over the territory that had been its people's home. The final image was the most heartbreaking. It showed the creature trying to approach the human colony, but every time it came near, the humans attacked, not because it was threatening them, but because they were afraid of something they didn't understand. You've been trying to make contact for years, Elena said, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. But every time you got close to the colony, they shot at you. They couldn't see past your size, your appearance. The creature made its musical sound again, and this time Elena heard something new in it. Relief. Finally, someone understood. But why me? Elena asked. Why don't you react to me the way you do to the others? The creature moved to another section of the wall where there were smaller carvings. Elena studied them carefully. They seemed to show different humans, but there was something special about certain figures. They were depicted with a subtle glow around them, a visual indicator that set them apart from the others. You can sense something about certain humans that others can't, Elena realized. Some kind of, empathy? Emotional resonance? The creature touched her shoulder with the lightest possible pressure from its massive claw. The contact sent a strange tingling sensation through Elena's body. And suddenly she could sense the creature's emotions directly, not just its current feelings, but layers upon layers of experience, loneliness that stretched back decades, the grief of watching its people leave never to return, the frustration of being misunderstood, attacked when all it wanted was connection, but underneath it all hope, endless patient hope that someday someone would see past the frightening exterior to the gentle intelligence beneath. Oh, Elena breathed, tears starting in her eyes. You're not just intelligent. You're telepathically sensitive. You can feel the emotional resonance of other creatures. That's how your people communicated, isn't it? Not just with sounds and chemicals, but with direct emotional transfer. The creature's touch lifted from her shoulder, but the connection remained. Elena could still sense its presence in her mind, not intrusive but available, like having a friend sitting quietly nearby. Most humans don't have that sensitivity, Elena continued, understanding flooding through her. But some do. People like me, who work with alien species who have to be emotionally open to understand other forms of life. You can sense that in us. The creature gestured toward the clearing beyond the building, where Elena now saw something she had missed before. There were other humans here, colonists who weren't hiding in the settlement buildings. They were working alongside the creature, helping to tend gardens that grew in perfect harmony between human technology and alien biology. These were the sensitive ones, Elena realized. The colonists who had been able to make the same connection she just had. They hadn't been killed or kidnapped. They had chosen to stay here, to be part of something unprecedented, the first true cooperation between humans and the planet's original inhabitants. But as Elena watched the peaceful scene, she heard something that made her blood run cold, the sound of shuttle engines approaching through the atmosphere. Military shuttles from the sound of them. Her 2 hours were almost up and the rescue fleet had arrived. Elena felt the creature's emotional state shift dramatically through their connection. The gentle curiosity and hope were replaced by something much darker. Not aggression, but deep, weary resignation. It had felt this before many times, the arrival of more humans, more weapons, more fear. "They're here to kill you," Elena said, not a question but a statement of fact. The creature made a low sound that vibrated through Elena's bones. Through their mental link, she understood its meaning. Yes, they always come to kill what they don't understand. Elena activated her comm unit. "Sarah, this is Elena. Do not let those military shuttles land. I repeat, do not allow military intervention." Sarah's voice crackled back, tense with relief and worry. "Elena, thank God you're alive. Fleet Command sent a full tactical squad when we reported the creature. They're going to neutralize the threat." "There is no threat," Elena said urgently. "Sarah, the creature is peaceful. The colonists are alive and safe. This whole situation has been a massive misunderstanding. Elena, we found the bodies." The words hit Elena like a physical blow. "What bodies?" 15 colonists found in the forest. "They've been..." "Elena, they were torn apart. The tactical team has orders to eliminate the creature immediately." Elena felt the creature's anguish through their connection. It remembered those deaths, and the emotion accompanying the memory was pure grief. Not satisfaction, not hunger, grief. "Those deaths weren't its fault," Elena said desperately. "Sarah, you have to trust me. I'm connected to it mentally. I can feel its emotions. It didn't kill those people in anger or for food. Something else happened." Through the forest canopy, Elena could see the black shapes of military shuttles descending. The creature looked up at them with the tired expression of someone who had seen this scene play out too many times before. "Elena, get away from that thing now," came a new voice over the comm, harsh, authoritative. "This is Colonel Martinez, 47th Tactical Response Unit. We have authorization to use lethal force." Elena stepped closer to the creature, placing her hand against its scaled hide. "Colonel, I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, xenobiological specialist. This creature is sentient and peaceful. If you attack it, you'll be committing genocide against the last guardian of this planet's original intelligent species. Doctor, I don't care if that thing can recite poetry. It killed 15 colonists. Move away immediately or be considered hostile." The creature's head lowered until it was next to Elena. Through their connection, she felt it sharing more memories, the true story of those 15 deaths. Elena saw through the creature's eyes. The colonists had been in the deep forest, not as victims but as visitors. They had been some of the first humans to make peaceful contact, coming to see the living buildings and meet the creature properly. But they weren't alone. Other humans had followed them, colonists who were terrified of the creature, convinced it was planning to attack the settlement. These humans had brought military weapons, intending to kill the creature while it was distracted. The creature had tried to protect the peaceful humans, placing itself between them and the attackers. But in the chaos, with energy weapons firing and explosions in the forest, some of the very people it was trying to save had been caught in the crossfire. "It was trying to protect them," Elena whispered, understanding flooding through her. Some colonists panicked and attacked while others were trying to make peaceful contact. The creature tried to shield the peaceful ones, but what, Elena? Sarah's voice was strained. Friendly fire, Elena said grimly. The 15 who died were killed by other humans who were shooting at the creature. It wasn't murder. It was a tragic accident during what should have been first contact. The military shuttles were landing now, visible through the trees. Elena could hear the sound of troops deploying, the mechanical whine of heavy weapons being powered up. The creature stood slowly, and Elena felt its decision through their link. It was going to walk out to meet the soldiers, just as it had tried to meet the colonists. It was going to try one more time to make peaceful contact, even knowing that it would probably die in the attempt. No, Elena said firmly, not this time. She stepped in front of the massive creature and activated her emergency beacon. But instead of calling for extraction, she set it to broadcast on all frequencies: military, civilian, scientific, and colonial. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, she announced, her voice carrying across every comm channel in the system. I am making first contact with an intelligent alien species native to Kepler 442b. This creature is peaceful, sentient, and has been attempting to communicate with human colonists for years. Any hostile action against it will be considered an act of genocide and a violation of the Sentient Species Protection Act. Doctor, shut down that transmission immediately. Colonel Martinez's voice was furious. Negative, Colonel. I'm invoking my authority as a certified xenobiological specialist under the Alien Contact Protocols. This creature is under my protection as a first contact subject. Elena felt the creature's amazement through their link. In all its years of trying to make contact with humans, no one had ever stood up for it. No one had ever put themselves at risk to protect it. The sound of approaching boots was getting closer. Elena looked up at the creature and made a decision that would change her life forever. I need you to trust me, she said aloud. And I need everyone who can hear this transmission to understand something about humanity. She took a deep breath and spoke to her comm unit. Knowing that her words were being heard by the military team, the colonists, Sarah's crew, and countless others monitoring the situation. Humans have a unique capacity among intelligent species. We can be terrified of something and curious about it at the same time. We can hate what we don't understand, but we can also love what's different from us. Most of all, we can change our minds when presented with new information. She gestured to the creature beside her. This being has been alone for decades, watching its people flee deeper into the planet to escape human expansion. It could have attacked us at any time. It could have driven us away or killed us all. Instead, it spent years trying to understand us, studying our belongings like an anthropologist, hoping that someday we would be ready to see it as more than a monster. The first soldiers appeared at the edge of the clearing, weapons raised and aimed at the creature. Elena saw their faces through their helmet visors. Young, scared, but also uncertain. They had expected to face a mindless beast, not a scene of obvious peaceful contact. Colonel Martinez, Elena called out, her voice steady despite the rifles pointed at her companion. I formally request that you delay any hostile action pending a full xenobiological assessment of this species. I believe this creature can provide information about the 15 deaths that will completely change our understanding of what happened here. The creature, seeming to understand the danger of the moment, did something that made several of the soldiers step back in surprise. It lay down, placing itself in a completely non-threatening position, and began to make its musical sound. But this time it wasn't trying to communicate with Elena. It was singing. A complex, beautiful melody that carried harmonics no human throat could produce. Through their mental link, Elena understood what it was doing. It was singing the history of its people. Their songs, their stories, their dreams. It was offering the soldiers, offering humanity, everything it had left to give. The creature's song filled the forest clearing with sounds that seemed to come from another world. Elena watched the faces of the soldiers through their helmet visors and saw something remarkable happening. Fear was being replaced by wonder. Weapons that had been aimed with lethal intent were slowly lowering as the men and women behind them struggled to reconcile what they were hearing with what they had expected to find. Sergeant Williams, the squad leader, was the first to speak. His voice came through the comm channel, quiet with amazement. Colonel, are you hearing this? That's music. Complex music. Sir, this thing is singing to us. Elena felt a surge of hope through her connection with the creature. It had sensed the change in the human's emotional state and was amplifying its song. weaving in new harmonics that conveyed not just its people's history, but their dreams of peaceful coexistence. "Stand down." Colonel Martinez's voice came through the comm, but he sounded uncertain now rather than commanding. "Maintain perimeter, but do not fire unless fired upon." Through the trees, Elena could see more figures approaching. Not soldiers, but colonists. Word of the standoff had spread through the settlement, and people were coming to see for themselves what was happening. Elena recognized several faces from the colony files. Dr. Morrison, the chief mining engineer. Lisa Chen, a teacher at the colony school. Even some of the children, held back by their parents but straining to see the creature that had terrified them from a distance. "Elena," Sarah's voice came through her private comm channel. "The whole sector is monitoring the situation now. Fleet Command, Colonial Administration, even the Alien Contact Committee on Earth. Whatever happens here is going to set precedent for future first contact situations." Elena felt the weight of that responsibility, but also a strange sense of rightness. This was why she had become a xenobiologist, not just to study alien life, but to bridge the gap between humanity and the unknown. The creature's song was reaching a crescendo, harmonics building upon harmonics until the sound seemed to fill not just the clearing, but Elena's entire being. Through their mental connection, she understood that this was the climax of the historical song, the part about first meeting humans and the hope that had sustained the creature through decades of loneliness and rejection. As the song ended, the silence that followed felt sacred. Elena looked around at the faces of humans and aliens who had never been in the same space before without violence or fear. Something profound had just happened, and everyone present seemed to understand it. "Dr. Vasquez," Colonel Martinez stepped forward, his weapon lowered. "I need to ask you some direct questions. Are you certain this creature poses no threat to the colonists?" "I'm staking my career and my life on it, Colonel. This being is not just peaceful. It's been actively protecting the colonists who were open to contact while trying to avoid those who were afraid." Elena gestured toward the forest behind them. "Colonel, with your permission, I'd like to bring some of your soldiers to see something. The creature has been building a sanctuary where humans and its species can coexist. Some colonists are already living there peacefully." Dr. Morrison stepped forward from the group of colonists. "It's true, Colonel. My daughter Emma has been visiting the creature for months. She's one of the sensitive ones. She can feel its emotions directly. It's been teaching her about its people's history and showing her how to grow plants using their biotechnology." A young girl, maybe 12 years old, pushed past the adults and walked directly toward the creature. Elena felt the being's joy through their connection as it recognized someone it considered a friend. "Emma," her father called out in alarm. But the girl was already standing beside the creature's massive head, her small hand resting against its scales. "It's okay, Dad. She's been sad for so long because everyone was afraid of her. She just wanted friends." The use of feminine pronouns caught Elena's attention. Through their mental link, she sensed confirmation. The creature was indeed female, the last female of her species on this world. That explained so much about her protective behavior, her careful preservation of both human and alien artifacts, her desperate attempts at communication. "She's not dangerous," Emma continued, looking directly at Colonel Martinez. "She saved me when I fell into the river last month. She could have hurt any of us any time she wanted, but she never did. She just wanted us to understand that this was her home too." Elena saw the moment when everything clicked into place for the colonel. His military training warred with the evidence before his eyes. A child standing safely beside a creature that could have destroyed the entire colony, speaking about it with the casual affection of someone talking about a beloved pet. "Stand down, all units," Martinez ordered. "We're dealing with a first contact situation, not a hostile threat." But Elena's moment of relief was interrupted by a new voice on the comm channel, one that made her blood run cold. "Negative, ground teams. This is Admiral Reeves aboard the Dominion. I have direct orders from Earth Command to neutralize any alien threat on Kepler 442b. The creature is to be eliminated immediately." Elena felt the creature's emotional state shift to resigned terror. Through their link, she saw flashes of memory, other worlds, other times when her people had encountered species that chose violence over understanding. The creature had hoped humans might be different, but she had prepared for this possibility. "Admiral," Elena broadcast on all frequencies, "I am formally invoking the Sentient Species Protection Act. This creature is demonstrably intelligent, peaceful, and is attempting first contact. Any attack on her would constitute genocide under interstellar law. Dr. Vasquez, your authority doesn't extend to military operations. You have 30 seconds to clear the area before we commence orbital bombardment. Elena looked up at the sky, where she could now see the dark shape of a military vessel moving into position. The Dominion was a heavy cruiser, capable of reducing the entire forest to ash within minutes. The creature rose to her feet and made a sound Elena had never heard before. Not musical, not threatening, but somehow final. Through their connection, Elena felt what the being was preparing to do. "No," Elena said, grabbing onto one of the creature's massive claws. "Don't sacrifice yourself. There has to be another way." But the creature's mind was made up. She had lived too long with the knowledge that her people's extinction was inevitable. If her death could at least save the humans who had shown her kindness, the colonists, the soldiers who had lowered their weapons, the child who called her friend, then it would not be meaningless. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she experienced the creature's final decision. But then she felt something else, a warmth in her mind that she recognized from her years of working with empathic species. The creature wasn't the only one with telepathic abilities. Elena had always been sensitive to alien emotions, but she had never realized that the sensitivity went both ways. Just as the creature could project her feelings into Elena's mind, Elena could project back, and right now, Elena's mind was filled with the most powerful human emotion she knew, the fierce, protective love that drives a person to stand between danger and those they care about. She projected that feeling outward through her connection with the creature, but she didn't stop there. She opened her mind completely, letting her love for all intelligent life, human and alien, flow through the mental link. The creature gasped, a sound of amazement that carried subsonic frequencies Elena felt in her bones. For the first time in decades, she was not alone in her mind. For the first time since her people had fled into the deep places of the world, she could feel the emotional presence of someone who truly understood her. And Elena's love for life, her fierce determination to protect the innocent, was giving the creature something she had lost long ago: hope. Elena felt the creature's amazement ripple through their mental connection as the being experienced human love and determination for the first time. But there was no time to explore this new bond. The Dominion was moving into firing position above them. "Elena," Sarah's voice crackled urgently through the comm. "I'm reading massive power buildup in the Dominion's weapon systems. Orbital bombardment in 90 seconds. Elena looked around at the people in the clearing, soldiers who had lowered their weapons, colonists who had come to witness history, a child who considered the creature her friend. If Admiral Reeves opened fire, all of them would die along with the planet's last indigenous guardian. Through her connection with the creature, Elena felt a new sensation, not an emotion, but information. The being was sharing something crucial, something that could change everything. "She's not alone," Elena gasped, understanding flooding through her. Her people, they're not extinct. They're still here, in the deep caves. The creature projected images into Elena's mind. Vast underground cities, grown from living stone and root systems. Hundreds of beings like herself, maybe thousands, living in the planet's depths. They had retreated underground not just to escape human expansion, but to protect something precious. They're protecting the planet's core ecosystem, Elena realized. The whole surface biosphere depends on what they're maintaining down there. If the planet's indigenous species die out completely. The images continued, showing Elena what would happen if the careful balance was disrupted. Without the deep dwelling, creatures maintaining the underground root networks and mineral cycles, the entire planet would begin to die within a generation. The forest would wither, the atmosphere would destabilize, and Kepler 442b would become uninhabitable for humans and aliens alike. "Admiral Reeves," Elena broadcast on all frequencies, desperation giving her voice a commanding edge. "If you destroy this creature, you'll be committing suicide for the entire human colony. The indigenous species aren't just inhabitants, they're the biological foundation that keeps this planet habitable. Dr. Vasquez, you have 60 seconds to clear the impact zone." Elena felt the creature's resignation returning, but this time it was different, not the despair of inevitable extinction, but the calm determination of someone who had found a purpose worth dying for. The creature began to glow. At first, Elena thought it was her imagination, but the soft bioluminescence was real. Patterns of light were moving beneath the creature's scales, and Elena realized this was how her species communicated over long distances. "She's calling them," Elena whispered. "She's calling her people to the surface." The ground beneath them began to vibrate, and Elena heard gasps of amazement from the humans around her. Trees throughout the forest were beginning to glow with the same soft light, and Elena understood that the entire forest was connected, not just the plants but the underground network that the creature's people maintained. "Elena," Sarah's voice was tight with awe, "I'm reading massive seismic activity across the entire continent. It's not destructive, it's coordinated. Something huge is moving underground." The creature's light pulsed brighter, and Elena felt, through their connection, that this was a signal of tremendous significance, the equivalent of a planetary alarm call, something that hadn't been used in generations. 40 seconds to bombardment, came Admiral Reeves' cold voice. But now other voices were joining the conversation. Dr. Morrison was on his comm with the Colonial Administration. Colonel Martinez was arguing with his superiors about the Sentient Species Protection Act. Most importantly, Elena could hear Sarah coordinating with other ships in orbit, civilian vessels and research ships that had arrived to witness the first contact situation. "Admiral," came a new voice, Captain Harrison of the research vessel Discovery. "I'm reading unprecedented biological activity across the entire planet. Whatever's happening here, it's much bigger than a single creature." Elena felt a moment of hope, but the creature's emotional state was becoming increasingly frantic. Through their link, Elena sensed that the deep-dwelling creatures were responding to the call, but they wouldn't reach the surface in time. The orbital bombardment would come first, and with their guardian dead, they would retreat forever back into the depths. 20 seconds. Elena made a decision that surprised even herself. She stepped away from the creature and activated her personal emergency beacon, not the standard distress signal, but a special frequency reserved for the most extreme circumstances. "This is Dr. Elena Vasquez invoking Code 7 emergency protocols," she announced. "I am declaring Kepler 442b a protected world under the Planetary Preservation Act. As a certified xenobiologist with first contact authority, I am placing this entire planet under scientific protection, pending full ecosystem assessment." There was stunned silence on the comm channels. Code 7 was almost never used. It gave a single qualified individual the authority to halt all military and colonial operations on a world if they could demonstrate the presence of critical alien life. 10 seconds to bombardment. "Admiral," Elena continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "if you fire on this planet, you'll be violating 3 separate acts of interstellar law: the Sentient Species Protection Act, the Planetary Preservation Act, and the First Contact Protocols. Every ship in orbit is recording this situation. The political fallout alone will end your career." Elena felt the creature's amazement through their connection. In all her centuries of life, no individual of any species had ever risked their own standing to protect her. 5 seconds. "Admiral." Colonel Martinez's voice cut through the tension. "I have multiple confirmed sightings of additional alien life forms approaching the surface. Dr. Vasquez is right. This is a full first contact situation with what appears to be a planetary civilization." Elena looked toward the forest edge and saw them, dozens of lights moving through the trees. The creature's people were emerging from the deep places, drawn by her call. Some were already visible between the trees, smaller than the Guardian but unmistakably of the same species. "Bombardment canceled." Admiral Reeves's voice was tight with frustrated anger. "All ships maintain orbital position pending review from Earth Command." Elena felt her knees go weak with relief, but the creature's emotional state was shifting to something she had never felt from the being before, pure, overwhelming joy. Through their mental link, Elena experienced what it meant to a creature who had been alone for decades to suddenly be surrounded by her own kind again. But the joy was mixed with something else, a deep, profound gratitude directed at Elena herself. Through their connection, Elena felt the creature trying to understand what had motivated a human to risk everything to protect someone of another species. "I couldn't let them kill you," Elena said quietly, placing her hand against the creature's glowing scales. "It wouldn't have been right. Intelligence is precious, regardless of what form it takes." The creature lowered her massive head until she was eye level with Elena, and for a moment, the two different forms of life simply looked at each other. Elena felt the creature's mind touching hers, not just sharing emotions now, but attempting something deeper, a true meeting of consciousness across species barriers. What Elena felt in that moment changed her understanding of what it meant to be human. She experienced the creature's memories of her people's first encounters with various alien species across the galaxy. Most had ended in violence or mutual avoidance. A few had achieved peaceful coexistence. But never before had the creature encountered a species like humanity, capable of both terrible fear and incredible compassion, often existing in the same individual. "We're contradictory," Elena said, understanding what the creature was trying to comprehend. "Humans can be their own worst enemies and their own greatest heroes, sometimes in the same day. We're terrified of what we don't understand, but we're also driven to understand what terrifies us." Through their link, Elena felt the creature's realization that this paradox wasn't a flaw in human nature. It was humanity's greatest strength. It was what allowed humans to change, to grow, to overcome their own limitations when something truly important was at stake. As more of the creature's people emerged from the forest, Elena saw that some of the colonists were approaching them without fear. The sensitive ones, the empaths who could feel the aliens' peaceful intentions. Children were among them, drawn by natural curiosity rather than learned prejudice. And Elena realized that what was happening here wasn't just first contact between two species. It was the beginning of something unprecedented, a truly integrated civilization where humans and aliens could live and work together, each species contributing their unique strengths to build something neither could achieve alone. 6 months later, Elena stood in the center of what had once been an empty forest clearing. Now it was the heart of New Harmony, the first integrated human-alien settlement in known history. Living buildings grown by the indigenous creatures stood alongside human structures, connected by bridges and walkways that seemed to blend naturally with the landscape. The creature, who had chosen to be called Sireth when the translation protocols were established, stood beside Elena watching human and alien children play together in the gardens. The sight still filled Elena with wonder. Young humans learning to shape plants with biotechnology, while young members of Sirath's species experimented with human tools and concepts. "The integration is proceeding faster than anyone predicted," Elena said, more to herself than to Sirath. But she felt the being's agreement through their permanent mental link. Over the months, Elena had learned that her telepathic connection with Sirath wasn't unique. About 1 in 50 humans had the potential for direct emotional communication with Sirath's people, whom they called the Kethera. These individuals had become natural bridges between the species, facilitating understanding and cooperation in ways that traditional translation couldn't achieve. "Dr. Vasquez," Sarah approached through the gardens, carrying a data tablet and wearing the smile she always got when reporting good news. "The latest reports from Earth Command are in. Based on our success here, they're implementing the Kepler protocols for all future first contact situations." Elena felt a warm glow of satisfaction. The Kepler protocols mandated that any first contact scenario must include certified empathic specialists and required a waiting period for full cultural assessment before any military action could be taken. It wouldn't prevent all future conflicts, but it would give peaceful species like the Kethera a chance to communicate before being destroyed out of fear. More importantly, Sarah continued, the colonial administration wants to establish similar integrated settlements on 12 other worlds where we've detected potentially intelligent indigenous life. They want you to head the program. Elena looked around at the thriving community they had built. Human engineers worked alongside Kethera biotechnicians to develop new forms of architecture. Human doctors learned healing techniques that had been perfected over millennia of Kethera medicine. Most remarkably, human children and Kethera young played together with the unconscious ease of any mixed community. "What do you think?" Elena asked Sirath through their mental link. She felt the creature's response immediately, not words, but a complex emotion that conveyed both excitement at the possibility of helping her people make contact with humans on other worlds and concern about leaving the community they had worked so hard to build. Some of your people could come with us, Elena suggested aloud. Experienced individuals who could help facilitate contact on other worlds, and we could train more humans in empathic communication techniques. Through their link, Elena felt Sirath consulting with others of her kind through the same telepathic network that connected all Cathara. The conversation was vast and complex, involving not just Sirath's immediate community but Cathara, in the deep cities around the world and even some on distant planets that Elena hadn't known existed. Your people are everywhere, aren't they? Elena realized. The Cathara aren't just indigenous to this planet, you're a spacefaring civilization. Sirath's emotional response carried amusement and confirmation. The Cathara had been exploring the galaxy for thousands of years, but their approach was completely different from humanity's. Instead of conquest or colonization, they found suitable worlds and adapted to them, becoming part of existing ecosystems rather than replacing them. That's why you recognize the potential in humans, Elena continued, understanding more of the picture. You've encountered other species that started out aggressive but learned to coexist. You knew we had the capacity to change. Through their link, Elena felt Sirath sharing memories of other species the Cathara had encountered over the millennia. Some had remained trapped in cycles of violence and fear. Others had learned to move beyond their aggressive origins and become true galactic citizens. Humanity, Sirath conveyed, showed more promise than most. The same curiosity that drove humans to fear the unknown also drove them to understand it once they realized it wasn't a threat. More than that, humans had a unique capacity to form emotional bonds across species barriers. The children, Elena said, watching a human girl teach a young Cathara how to skip stones, while an older Cathara showed human children how to encourage flower buds to open through gentle touch. They're going to grow up thinking this is normal. She felt Sirath's profound satisfaction at this observation. The next generation wouldn't have to overcome centuries of xenophobia and fear. They would see cooperation between species as the natural state of things. Elena activated her comm unit. Sarah, tell Earth Command I accept the assignment. But I have conditions. Name them. First, every first contact team includes both humans and Cathara. We're stronger together than either species is alone. Second, we take our time. No more rushing into situations with weapons drawn. We study, we understand, we communicate before we act. Elena looked at Sirath, feeling the creature's approval through their link. And third, we establish the principle that intelligence in any form has the right to exist and communicate. No more shoot first, ask questions later. I'll convey your terms to the Admiral, Sarah said, though I suspect they'll approve anything you ask for at this point. The success of New Harmony has made you something of a legend back on Earth. After Sarah left, Elena walked with Sirath to their favorite spot, a hill overlooking the settlement where they could see the full scope of what they had accomplished together. Human and Cathara architecture blended seamlessly. Children of both species played in integrated groups, and adults of both kinds worked side by side on projects that neither could have accomplished alone. You know what the most remarkable thing is? Elena said through their mental connection. 6 months ago, everyone saw you as a monster. Even I was afraid when I first approached you. She felt Sirath's gentle amusement at the memory. Through their link, the Cathara had conveyed that Elena's approach had been anything but fearless. She had been terrified, but had acted anyway because she believed it was right. That's what makes humans special, isn't it? Elena continued. We're cowards and heroes at the same time. We're terrified of everything, but we do what needs to be done despite the fear. Sirath's response was complex, agreement mixed with something deeper. Through their connection, Elena felt the Cathara's understanding that courage wasn't the absence of fear. True courage was feeling afraid and choosing to act with compassion anyway. Elena thought about all the species they would encounter in the years to come, all the potential conflicts they might prevent, all the communities like New Harmony they might help create. It wouldn't always work. Some species would be genuinely hostile, others too alien for any meaningful communication. But for the first time in human history, they would approach the unknown with the assumption that cooperation was possible. As the sun set over New Harmony, Elena felt something she had never experienced before, a sense of completeness that came from knowing she had found her true purpose. She wasn't just studying alien life anymore. She was helping to create a future where the diversity of intelligence throughout the galaxy could flourish together. Through her link with Sirath, she felt the Kethera's ancient dream of a galaxy where all thinking beings could coexist peacefully. For the first time in millennia, that dream seemed achievable, and it had started with one terrifying moment when a human woman chose to approach a creature that everyone else saw as a monster, and discovered that the real monster had always been fear itself. Elena smiled, feeling Sirath's contentment through their bond, and began planning for the next world where they would help two different forms of life discover they were stronger together than either could be alone.